Thanks, Rich. Yeah, and I'll start revealing what the challenge is. Some of you guys already know it from yesterday because I revealed it to a few insiders. But my challenge I gave myself is that this presentation needs to be either the best one you're watching on Think Summit or the worst one. I'm not going for anything in between. So when my presentation is done, please give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Doesn't matter. I like both of them, just not in the middle. So. But we'll just go ahead with it. So quickly about me, my name is Jacob. I head up the global CRM team at Pandora on a mission to build the world's greatest jewelry brand, but most importantly, I'm the proud father of those two. Enough about this one. So the presentation format I'm going to use here today is a bit special because I don't like the normal, boring, formal presentation. So I'm doing this presentation that I call the presentation format, calling it the story mode. So when you do it as a story, that means that you can come up with fictional characters. You can lie as much as you want. You can probably also make it a bit more funny and a bit more interesting to the crowd. So that's what I'll try out. So building a story sort of like has some different elements into it. You need to build up the tension over time. You need to set the scene. You need to set the characters. And then you might end with a twist. You might end with some laughs. We'll wait and see. That's up for you guys to judge in the end. So before we jump into the actual story, I want to introduce you to the characters of the story. The story has 5 characters. The first one, and these are all fictional characters, might be inspired by real people and events, but it's up for you to judge. The first character is called the Old Grumpy Man. No similarity to anyone. Next one is called Young Innovation. Third character is called Salespeople. Fourth is a character called Plug and Play. And the fifth character is called the Accelerator. So that's sort of like setting the scene. Now we're ready to start. Start with the first chapter, Old Grumpy Man. The story starts a long way back. Not as long back as when this movie was made, but all the way back to 2020, the year of COVID, if you all remember that year. Seems like ages ago. The Old Grumpy Man, he took over the global CRM team for a specific company. I'm not naming it here. This is the picture from the first day. Really, really welcoming him. Really, really happy to see him. But 5 minutes after, they all turned like this. He spoke with all the markets. They also were like this because they were all complaining on the ESP they were on. They said, this ESP sucks. You really need to change it. We need to do something about it. Then Old Grumpy Man looked a bit into the numbers. And this one is a slide or some numbers everyone can use if they want to convince, for instance, their CFO to go with Movable link. On this one, we see 2 sides of email. We have on the left side, we have what we call campaign or newsletters. That's the thing where the team sets up a really, really beautiful email with a lot of content, send it out, never use it again. On the other side is all the automated programs based on triggers, behaviors, and all sorts of stuff. If we then look at the numbers, and that's the interesting part here. The numbers for this specific company, in terms of volume, around 7% of the volume was automated programs and 93% of the total sent volumes was campaign. But comparing that to the revenue that is being generated, and that was what James referred to earlier on today, was that actually 40% of the revenue came from the programs and around 60% came from the campaigns. And why is that? Yeah, it's quite obvious because the automated programs, when it's based on triggers, behaviors, it's almost always much more relevant to the customer. But the Old Grumpy Man, he then thought about, okay, is there a way that we can combine these things? But he couldn't come up with the exact idea. So he went into his thinking box. These are quite nice to have in the office. I recommend everyone to have a box like this. So the Old Grumpy Man went into his thinking box. Chapter 2, Young Innovation. Young Innovation joined the company, and Young Innovation is like all young starts, dynamite up their ass, a rocket on the back aiming for the moon. Young Innovation then joined a meeting at the company, one of the first meetings. It was a meeting where there was an agency in. They went through, okay, we're going to build this new program. It will take 6 to 8 weeks to build this program. It will cost a fortune. This is how it is. But then when they came out of the room, Young Innovation sat down with the old grumpy man. And then Young Innovation said, why does this need to take so long? Old grumpy man looked at him and said something like, welcome to corporate, son. But it did make him think a bit more. So he went into the thinking box and said, okay, maybe he's onto something. Takes us to chapter 3, salespeople. Old grumpy man was still sitting in his thinking box. After a while, he came out with a brilliant idea. Why don't I ask people within my network if they can help me out? So he asked a lot of people, heard a lot of different names, vendors, and so forth. And then one of the names that came up was this company called Movable. Old grumpy man had no clue what it was about. He thought it was a tattoo studio or something like that where it could transform the tattoos over time. Could be really cool. But it actually turned out that they were doing something different. They were doing things with dynamic content for emails and so forth, and Old Grumpy Man thought it was super interesting. Teamed up with their superheroes on the sales team, and quite fast they signed a contract. Takes us to chapter 4, plug and play. So a lot of salespeople, and you probably heard this a million times, it's plug and play, will get you up and running in a week or two. It's super, super easy. And actually with this company, it was quite easy. And here's a roadmap of what they delivered over the first, I think this is around the first year, and on the next slide I have the second year. So they delivered a lot over that time. I'm not going into details with every single thing of this one. But the interesting part here is how they sort of like transformed the process for the campaign team and the rest of the email team. Normally, as I said before, the campaign team would create one long campaign newsletter that would look really, really good. You send it out, never use it again. It takes a lot of time, costs a fortune to build, and image rights and everything that goes into it. But with this one, they could actually limit it so they would only create maybe 40% of the email. So imagine instead of creating the full email every time, now they had to create around 40% of the email. And the rest was then were built up with the dynamic blocks instead. And the company sort of like divided those 3 dynamic blocks into 3 areas. So they have the first one in the bottom is called what they call segmented evergreen blocks. That can be content that you can reuse over and over again. For this company, it could be around craftsmanship, sustainability, pulling in influencer content, whatever it is. An evergreen block that you could more or less put into every single email that you had. The next layer is what they call personalized or semi-personalized blocks. This is especially the one taking the things from the automated programs. It can bring in the abandoned cart. It can bring in recently viewed, can bring in bestsellers, can bring in a lot of stuff. It just means that the email you get is always somewhat personalized and is always relevant to you. The last layer up in the top is called the predictive blocks, and that's where it sort of like takes advanced analytics into place. So predicting your next best category, your next best purchase, your next best channel to purchase it on, bringing all those things together. So it's all like different layers. Old Grumpy Man was really, really fascinated about this, and he actually ended up creating this, what he called the life formula of life. So it builds on the email, and as I just explained before, when you only have to do 40% of the email every time, you're actually saving a lot of time. At the same time, when the email is more relevant, it also creates more money or higher revenue. And that means, in the end, more time for drinking beers. So the Old Grumpy Man loved the life formula, and luckily for him, so did the team. Plus, he also got some really cool swag from the team. This is beeswax candles. Who doesn't love beeswax candles? This takes us to the final chapter called the Accelerator. And even though they already made it quite far over the first few years, Old Grumpy Man got a bit inspired by Young Innovation, and he also wants to build rockets. And we don't want to stand still. We want to constantly develop. So what they did together with the Accelerator team from from Movable Inc., this is the rocket, was that they looked into all the blocks that they have already built. And what about, instead of taking one block at a time and always deciding on which block to use, could they then in some way combine those blocks and make the total block, in this picture, maybe round and make it roll faster, generate more revenue, always find the right block to put in instead of always having the marketeers to select these. So what they came up with was something they called the super block. Sounds super exciting, but it's sort of like taking all the best performing blocks that you'll have with Movable Inc. Then there's a business logic behind helping decide which block are we then showcasing to this specific consumer. So if the old grumpy man doesn't have anything in his abandoned cart, we can't show him an abandoned cart. But what is then the next best thing for him? Is it recently viewed? Is it if he has a pending voucher that he can still use? All the way down to having a fallback, which could be bestsellers or something else. But it's all like taking the best of everything that you have, combine it into once, and then you can more or less put it into every single email that you have. The team is still experimenting with this block. This is an actual footage on how they do it in their lab. So that's still in progress, but so far, old grumpy man has told me that it's performing really, really well, and he sees a really, really bright future for this new product. So now I'll sum it up what you learned over the story here. So first thing we learned, grumpy old men needs to listen. Sometimes plug and play is actually really close to being plug and play. Next one here I like a lot. Movable Inc. equals more time for drinking beers. Who doesn't love drinking beers or your favorite beverage? Coolest swag ever. Still up for interpretation. And then last but not least, the continuous innovation is key to success for this one. So always keep developing on what you have. Never stand still. You might start from scratch, build something on, but it's a journey that will never end. So this actually brings me to the end of my presentation here. And then I'll see if I can time this one right. But now I need you guys to work with me. As I told you to begin with, I need a thumbs down, thumb up. If you really mean it was average, okay, put it in between. That's fine. But I'll turn my back to you guys. Then I'll count on 3, and then I'm expecting to see a lot of hands in the air. Okay, are you ready? Yeah. Yes? Okay. 3, 2, 1.